Functional harmony is a set of rules you can use to create logical chord progressions that sound quote-unquote right. It may sound complicated at first, but it's actually pretty easy, so let's go ahead and jump in. First, let's take a look at this diagram. Here we see all the chords within the key of C, and then we have numbers underneath them sort of to represent them with Roman numerals. If it's an uppercase Roman numeral, then it's a major chord. If it's lowercase, it's minor. And if it's lowercase with the little diminished symbol, then it's, a diminished chord. And by the way, I'll have a larger graphic at the end of this video. I'll put a timestamp up there for you, and it will show multiple keys so that you can use it as like a reference point, along with this diagram using Roman numerals. So we have all the chords in the key of C, and we've numbered them and such, but the real question is, what order do we play them in such a way that, it sounds like it should? To start off, we need to name a few different types of chords. The 1 chord and the 3 chord are called tonic chords. They're like the home base, they're kind of what everything revolves around. Ultimately, you're going to end with your 1 chord, right? That's the big chord you hear at the end of your composition, or your chord progression, or whatever. So keep that in mind, those are kind of the home base that we're trying to get to. Then we have the dominant chords. So that's going to be the 5 and the 7 chord. And then the last group of chords we have are the subdominant chords, which is everything else. It's going to be the 2, the 4, and the 6. Here's how things flow. Tonic is our home or our root, like we said before. So we start from the tonic, and then from tonic chords, we can go anywhere we want. We can go to a subdominant or a dominant, whatever. Once we get to a dominant, the dominant chord always wants to go back to the 1. If we go to a subdominant chords want to go to dominant. So your progression would either be a tonic chord to a dominant chord, and then a tonic, or it could be like a tonic to a subdominant, then dominant, and then tonic. So that's sort of the way it works. Now let's go back to our first diagram. I'm going to put a T for tonic chords underneath the 1 and the 3, and then I'm going to put just a quick abbreviation for subdominants under the subdominants, and an abbreviation for dominants under the dominant, so that you can kind of, just looking at this graph, see how things are functioning. So let's actually go ahead and make up a chord progression. We'll start with our 1 chord, that's kind of a given, and let's go to a subdominant chord. So we'll go to the 4 chord. And then from there, we're going to go to a dominant chord, which will be our 5 chord. Usually you want to go to the 5 chord for your dominant chord. It sounds a lot better than the 7 in a major key, especially. But then we'll go from our 5 chord back to our 1. So we're just going 1, 4, 5, and then 1. So tonic, subdominant, dominant, tonic. All right, listen to how this sounds. All right, now let's do a different progression. We'll start with the tonic chord, and then we'll go to the 4 chord again, a subdominant. But now we can go to any other subdominant we want to before we go to the dominant. So we're going to go to our 4, and now let's go to the 2. And then from the 2, a subdominant, we'll go to the 5, our dominant, and then back to 1. So now we have a slightly longer chord progression. Check out how this sounds. Now here's another example where we play 2 tonic chords, and we go through 3 subdominant chords, then our dominant chord and our 1, right? So we're going to go 1, 3, 6, 4, 2, 5, 1, right? So you see the kind of the flow here. Check this out, it sounds really cool. Now you may have noticed how a lot of times we're ending our chord progressions with a 5-1, and that's actually very normal in Western music. It has a name, it's called a cadence. There are a few exceptions to this rule though, and there's some other like cadences that we have. They're very specific though, and they're not used all the time. The first one that you see a lot is the 5 going to the 6. So instead of going to the 1 at the end, the 5 goes to the 6, which is weird because that's a dominant going to a subdominant, but it's one of those exceptions that you can use at the end of your chord progression. This makes a really cool sound. Just for the sake of comparison, let's do a 1, 4, 5, 1, and then let's do a 1, 4, 5, 6, so that you can kind of hear the juxtaposition of the two. So that's called a deceptive cadence when you go from the 5 to the 6. We call it deceptive because your ear kind of expects the 5 to go to 1 because that's what you hear all the time. But because it goes to the 6, it's deceptive, quote unquote. So that's one cadence. There's another cadence that we should also take a look at called the plagal cadence. Sometimes it's called the amen cadence because you hear it often in hymns. So in this cadence, you're going to go from the 4 to the 1. So that's super crazy. Now we're going from a subdominant to a tonic, right? So that's kind of breaking the rules again, but it actually has a very pretty sound. So let's do an example real quick. We'll go 1, 2, 4, 1. So we're going tonic to 2 subdominants and then back to tonic. A little bit weird, but it actually has a very pretty sound to it. Check it out. Alright, that's pretty much all you need to know, but let's go ahead and take a look at minor keys. Everything here is actually the same. As you can see from this first diagram, everything, it looks a little bit different, the chords, but everything still functions the same. The 1 and the 3 are still tonic chords, the 2, the 4, and the 6 are still subdominant, and the 5 and the 7 are dominant. So all the same rules apply here. Let's make a quick progression here. We'll go from the 1 to the 3, both tonic chords, and then let's do a subdominant. So we'll do the 4, and then we'll go to the 5 here, and then back to the 1. So give this a quick listen. Alright, that's pretty much it. Here's that larger graphic I was telling you about earlier. Hopefully you find this helpful. I have not all the keys, but a good number of the keys that you would normally be seeing, along with the Roman numerals. So check this out, start kind of experimenting with playing these progressions in different orders, following these rules, and let me know if you have any questions. And also as an added note here at the end, don't be afraid to kind of do whatever you want. You don't have to follow these rules, you don't have to go in this order. It's good to kind of know these rules as a guideline, but it's not the end of the world. If you play some random chord progression and you think it sounds cool, that's fine. You can go with it. There's nothing wrong with that. I, for a long time, thought you had to do only functional harmony progressions, but you really don't. You can kind of do whatever you want. So that being said, knock yourselves out, and best of luck to you guys. I'll talk to you next week.